Hello, yeah. This is a little awkward. I thought this was a View conference, so that's what my talk is. So I hope you're interested in that. Super happy to be here. My name is Michael. I flew in last night from California. Don't hold that against me. I'm from California. Super happy to be here, and just wanted to tell you just a little bit about who I am. I work on a project called React Router. React Router is, how many people using React Router in here? Woo! Eesh. All right. Good luck. So React Router is a project that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years. How you do routing in React. I run this company called React Training. I work together with a couple of other people. It's been a lot of fun. I've been out to Chicago several times. We were just out here actually like a month and a half ago at Yellow. Yeah, Yellow. Couple of yellow people in the audience here. And I've been running this for the last couple of years. We actually have a workshop that, so we just recently went all around the country and gave this workshop. And we're recording it and putting it online. So if you're interested in that, you can go to reacttraining.com. You can find out about that. If you're interested in following along with my talk today, I put the whole thing on a GitHub repo. So if you go to mjackson React Loop 2019, you want to follow along, you could go ahead and download that, and I'll show you again that link at the end. So anyway, that's just a little bit about who I am, where I come from, what I do. I want to talk today about hooks. So as I just said, I just recently kind of completed a tour of the US. We talked to a lot of different people about hooks. And we heard a lot of feedback about React hooks. So if you're unfamiliar with React hooks, they're basically this method for composing behavior. So the title of my talk today is Composing Behavior in React, or Why Hooks Are Awesome. One of the pieces of feedback that we got from the people that we were talking to about the hooks is, the conversation would usually go something like this, like, so you're using React? Yeah. Are you using hooks? Well, and it would either be like, yes, heck yeah, I'm totally on board with the hooks, or something like, I don't know, maybe we'll use the hooks. And I was kind of like surprised at the people who were a little ambivalent about it, because for me, it was like a complete like night and day transformation of React. And there are some people who are like, well, maybe like we'll just keep using the class stuff, and like maybe like we don't really need the hooks. The hook stuff, it is React. Like it's where React is totally going, right? It's almost, to me it feels like React v2, and it's all I want to do anymore. So I wanted to talk today about why I'm so excited about the hooks, and hopefully share a little bit of that with you. So I've got this little app. This is my workout tracker. This is how I track all my workouts. I've been slacking off lately. Let me add my workout for today. So today I ran through, it's Grant Park, right? Just across the street from us right there. Without my shirt. Scared everyone. All right. So go ahead and post that. So I can post my workouts, and I have this little like tracker that basically tells me like, okay, this is how much you've done, this is how much you're lacking. The goal is to work out at least 30 minutes a day. Whatever. It's this little app. We're doing some data loading. I've got all the source code over here, and so I wanted to, instead of like showing the examples that I do in the context of just like, oh, here's a little example, I wanted to do them in the context of a real app, because I think it just feels a little more real that way. So we're going to write a lot of code. Who's ready to write some code? Somebody in the back's like, I thought this was a Salesforce conference. Like, what am I? Code? I'm busted now. Okay, so let's write some code. So let's talk a little bit about composition, because sometimes you hear this word composition, right? What does composition mean? What does it mean? So sometimes you have like these little programs. Let's make something that's like a program. Actually, I'm going to do it right here. Let's say ls. Any Unix Let's see, any Unix hardcore people? Okay, ls, what does it do? Lists some files, right? Can pass it some flags, and now I've got a long listing of the files. What if I wanted to filter down this list to just, I don't know, just the things that say package in them? How could I do that? Grep, right? So I could say ls-al, so that's this command line program for listing all the files in a directory. And I can use this pipe operator, this vertical bar, to pipe it to something called grep, and I'll grep for the word package in that list. Okay, so now I've got a smaller list, right? I've just got the two things that say package. What if I wanted to then count those lines? Yeah, word count, right? So here's my previous command. So I could then take that result and I could pipe it to word count -l, which is count the number of lines. Now I've got 2. Right, so we kind of see this kind of interesting thing going on here in the command line, in these Unix tools, is that each program is just a little program, and you can kind of piece them together and take the output of one program and use it as the input to the next program, right? And this is kind of how you build, if you've ever done any bash scripting or anything like that. This is how you build programs, right? You've got these little programs with a common interface, and you can piece them together, right? So we've got the same thing in JavaScript. Yes, this is Vim. I know, kind of feeling my age here, showing my age. All right, so we've got the same thing in JavaScript. We've got functions. Okay, this is like my program. Okay, let's say I've got like an add function. It's going to be a function takes x and y, returns x plus y. Okay, so you can think about this. This is like my ls or my word count program. So what are the different ways that I can compose with this function? I could just get, just compute a result, call it directly, right? Maybe console.log that. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to pop open my console over here. Okay, so 9 is the result. How else could I use this function? Maybe I could, if I had like an array of numbers, I could reduce them using that add function, right? So I could say my sum, and I'll just go ahead and log that. Okay, so it's a little bit of a different usage here, right? Here we're calling it directly, just calling add directly. Here we're using add as the argument to some other function. Like we're not even calling it. Whoever is running reduce is calling it, right? So it's composing in a little bit of a different way. Let's say we wanted to use this function to create another function. Let's say we wanted to create like a multiply function. We want to multiply x and y. We could build multiplication using add on top of add. So we could say if y is greater than 0, we're just going to return add x plus multiply x times y minus 1. Otherwise, just return 0. Right? So this is a kind of a recursive way to do multiplication. Each time we're just taking in the number and multiplying by 1 less. So let's say we'll multiply by, I don't know, 9 and 4. 9 and 4, quick. What is it? Whew, those 9s. Those were hard for me. All right, we could even do negative numbers if y is less than 0. Basically, what we're going to do here is we're just going to return negative. We just got to flip some numbers around here and negative y. All right. So I'm using add here inside multiplication to implement my multiply function. I'm using it here as an argument to reduce so that we can so that reduce knows how to do its job. And here I'm just calling it directly. Right? There are all sorts of different ways that I can use functions. Why? Because they all have this common interface. What is the common interface? Input is the arguments, and the output is the return value. Okay? Common interface. Just like those little Unix programs, the common interface is the text stream that they're operating on. Okay? Why is this cool? Why am I talking about functions? the cool thing about hooks is, they are just functions, okay? Hooks are just functions, which means we can combine them in all sorts of cool little ways. Let me talk a little bit about what I mean. So let's say, so here I've got this little minutes component. It's this one right here that I'm using to increase and decrease the number of minutes that I worked out. Let's say that as I increase and decrease, I want to log the number of minutes to the console. So I could have an effect here, and I could say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. As the minutes change, I'm going to go ahead and log, the minutes are minutes. I'm just going to log it to the console. Oi, oh gosh. Don't forget your imports, kids. Smokey the Bear. All right. Okay, so let's pop one of these open here. So plus, minus. So we've got this is what I would describe as a behavior, right? Or it's an effect, but it really is, I call it behavior. So let's, so here we're just calling it directly, right? Just like we were calling that add function directly. Let's make like a custom hook. We'll call it use logging. And we could just move that behavior up into our custom hook, right? What is our common interface? The arguments, right? So now I can just say use logging of the minutes. Same thing, right? I mean, you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, duh, Michael, you just put it in a separate function. Why is that cool? Well, now anybody who wants to use logging can have that exact same behavior because I shared it using a function, okay? Let's make it a little less generic. Instead of passing in the minutes here, I just want to pass in like the message. A little more generic, sorry. So I'm actually going to just put the message here. And now, there. Now it's more generic. Now you can, anybody who passes it a message can put anything they want. And that effect is only going to run as the message changes, right? So anybody who wants to have this logging behavior in their app, they can use it. So we have control over the arguments. We have control over the implementation of our function. We have control over what it does. So this is we're kind of getting at composition here. Let's try something a little bit more complex. Let's try something a little more interesting. So I'm actually going to go down here. I'm going to go to this is my new post component, okay? So the new post component is the form that you see right here. Okay, this is our new post component. It's got the minutes counter. It's got this text area. We've got this button. So there are a couple of things that it's doing. One interesting thing that it's doing is you've got this message here, which we're getting from the text area. Let's go down to the text area and we'll show you here. So here's our text area. That's this one right up here. And as the text changes, as we enter new text here, one interesting behavior that we've got here is, you'll notice that we've got the on change and we're plugging in the value from our message state. So we're just holding the message in state. Where is it? It's right up here, okay? And one thing that you'll notice that we're doing is we're getting the default state from local storage, and then we're also saving to local storage that message. So this is kind of cool because if you accidentally close the modal, which day had I clicked? Oh, Wednesday, the 22nd. And then you reopen it, we're going to keep the text that you had there previously, right? It's also cool, for example, like if you accidentally close the tab and like reopen the page and you're like, oh man, I accidentally closed that tab and I had entered in all that text. Is it gone? No, you've still got it, right? So kind of a cool behavior, right? This is this text, we're hanging on to it for you just by persisting it to local storage as you change it, and then when the component opens up, we're going to go and get it back from local storage. Could we model, I mean, that's kind of a complex behavior, right? Could we model that using a hook so that anybody could have that behavior in their app? Okay, it's just another behavior, but this time we've got some state associated with it, right? So let's create a hook. We'll call it something like, instead of use state, this feels like use persistent state, right? This is state that is persisting across page loads. It's not just this ephemeral thing that's going to go away when the page refreshes. So let's go ahead and let's move all of this stuff up here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the message and the set message here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a default value that I'm going to use here. That's my default value. And then the other thing that I'll take here is just going to be the key. Okay. So I'll say that my message and my set message are coming from the use persistent state of, here I'll grab where's my key? Here it is. There's my key. So let's put our key here. And then our default value is just the empty string. And then we'll just swap this out as well for the key. I've got my linter over there. It's going to help me get through this presentation. All right, so I can just kind of take that chunk of code, right? Figure out what the arguments are. What arguments do I need? In this case, I need the key and the default value. The return value is just the same thing as what useState gives you, right? Just the state and the state setter. Except this time, it's cool because it persists across page loads, right? So I'm composing in new behavior into my app. How? Just by composing functions, right? So the way I think about these hooks is I think about them as like they're like a new primitive, right? You've got this function with a superpower that has access to the React lifecycle. You've got access to state. You can persist state. You can persist refs across renders, and then you can just take these little pieces, like these little programs, and piece them together to do the things that you need, and you get to decide the interface. Let's do something a little bit harder. Yes. All right, harder. What if I wanted to add like an undo and a redo behavior? So let's say I've got a couple of buttons here. I'm gonna get some new icons here. Let's pull in some new icons. Let's say FA undo, FA redo. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a hook that's gonna give us state that we can undo and redo for free. For free, yeah, I guess. So let's see. Let's go down here and let's make a couple of new buttons. So let's say this one is going to be. We'll just give it a little bit of margin on the right. We'll give it 10, and we're just going to say that this one is going to be our undo button, and we'll make it of type button. And then this one we'll make our redo button. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I open one of these up. So now I've got like these undo and redo buttons that I'm going to use to magically go back and forth through time with this bit of text, right? As I enter text, I'm going to be modifying that state. So let's go here and let's say when you click on this one, we're going to call a function called undo. And then when you click on this one, we're going to call a function called redo. Okay. Let's go ahead and make our undo and redo functions up here. Let's go and say, let's say here we've got a function undo, console.log undo, and we'll make a redo function as well. You might be thinking, does he write all of his code this quickly? No, honestly. It took me like a week to make this presentation, and then I practiced, and then now I write code quickly. That's just how it works. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to open this up. Okay, so undo, redo. Okay, so we're good. So how are we going to design this behavior as a hook? And what I'm going to suggest is something kind of crazy. Remember how we talked about how the output to one function can be the input to another function, right? It's not really that weird. Let's just create. So we'll say the output of use persistent state is just the state and the set state, right? Let's use that as the input to a new function called, I don't know, use undo. What is use undo doing? It's just taking the state and the set state, this common interface, right? And we're just going to return the state and the set state for now, okay? One thing we're going to do is we're going to move these functions. We're going to move them up into there. And so then we're going to get undo and redo from there. Undo and okay? So far, like we haven't like really changed the interface too much. We're just passing some things and then passing adding this undo and redo function to the mix. So what are they gonna do? So what I'm gonna do here is what I want is I'm just gonna keep an array of all the different messages that come through, okay? As they type a new message, as the message changes, we're just gonna hang on to it in this array. And then we're gonna have a bit of state that's gonna be the index into the array to tell us, okay, what is the current state, right? So we get the current state here. Let's hang on to that in a ref. I'll call it my history ref. So a ref is a way to hang on to something between renders, okay? It's one of these superpowers that we were talking about that these hooks have. And I'm also gonna have an index and a set index here, okay? And what I'm gonna say is the current state is not really it's not really the current state. It is history ref dot current at the current index. See what I'm saying? So like I have a chance here, I get the current state as input, but then the output I can make whatever I want. And in this case, it's gonna be the same thing because we're just using that 0 as an index into the array. Like it's just a lookup, right? And now all that the undo and the redo have to do is they just have to set the index, right? So we'll set the index to index -1 here. And we'll set the index to index +1 here. Okay. Only thing is, how am I going to get the new message as it's coming through, as it's changing, right? So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm not only going to overwrite the state, but I'm also going to overwrite the state setter, okay? So I'm going to give you like a new set state. Well, what is our new set state going to do? It's just a function that takes the next state, right? And it calls set state with that next state, okay? So far, not a big deal. It's just calling the original function that it's overwriting, right? But what we have here is we have a chance to see the new state come through, okay? So what we could do is we could just say history ref.current. Let's do this. We'll say the next index is going to be index +1. And so then we'll say at the next index in the array, we've got that next state. And then we'll increase the index. So set the index to that next index, okay? So this is our play, right? We're just putting it in the array, and we're incrementing the index. So now we can say, okay, when the index increases, we'll now use the item at that index. So let's see if it works. Come on. Oh, not bad. So I can delete it all, undo. Can we undo this? Yep. Or redo it. So what is this hook doing, right? It's overriding the state. It's also overriding the state setter, but it's still preserving that common interface, right? We can add behavior just by composing these functions together. The way that this hook feels to me is it kind of feels like middleware, right? Like, like in your Express apps where you've got like, okay, I've got the request coming in and now I've got all these little things that need to happen and then here's my request handler, right? Or in your like Redux apps. Anybody using Redux in here? You got your Redux middleware, right? So recently, ever since hooks came out, I've been talking to a lot of people about, the hooks and Redux. And there's this kind of common pattern that a lot of people are using, which is, they'll put they'll have a use reducer at the top of their app, and they'll have a use context, and they're kind of like simulating a lot of what React Redux gives them with just using hooks, right? Anybody doing that with your use reducer? Yeah. What if you could? So I've talked to people about that, and they say, those hooks are nice and everything, but they don't really give me middleware, right? Where's my Redux middleware? So here I've got a reducer. So this reducer is for the feed, okay? So basically what I'm doing here is I've got this feed. I'm dispatching these actions. I'm doing asynchronous stuff, and I'll fetching data from the server, etc. Loading this feed here. Let's maybe let's build like some middleware, right? What's a popular Redux middleware? Let's just build like a really simple logger. Let's get our state here in our dispatch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my whole use reducer in a use logger, in a middleware. Okay? And all a middleware is it's just a function that's wrapping it. And it's just using this common interface, return the state and the dispatch. Okay? That's how I always start. So everything's still working here. We're good. So the logger, what's it going to do? It's going to say, let's see. Let's keep track of the current action. So we're going to need an action ref. We'll say it's a use ref. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to overwrite this dispatch. I'm going to give a new dispatch, ref current. And then we'll say, let's have a new dispatch function here. The reason I'm using ref on this function is because you don't ever want the identity of the dispatch function to change. So we're going to have an action that comes through, right? And what we're going to do, all we're going to do is we're just going to save off the action and then call the original dispatch with that action, okay? So we're just making a little wrapper. Why? Because we're going to have some logging going on. So we're going to have an effect down here, and we're going to say, look, whenever the state changes, let's go and get our action. So our current action is the action ref.current. Okay. If there was an action, let's do some logging. Let's group it together so it looks nice. So we'll say dispatch, and then we'll say group end, and then we'll say something like let's log the action. Okay, there goes the action. And let's log the state that resulted from that action. So we'll say, here's the state. I think that's going to be all right. Fingers crossed. Let's see what we got down here in the... Okay, this is nice, right? So you can see the action that was dispatched. We had a load new post action, and the state that resulted when that action was dispatched. And as we go through and we're dispatching more and more actions, we can see them all kind of coming through here in our log, right? Here's all the new posts coming through, and as we're dispatching these actions through our reducer, we see new stuff coming through. So middleware, right? Redux middleware even, using a hook. I was going to do use thunk. But Joe's flashing me in the back. He's saying I'm out of time. Joe, 2 minutes for use thunk? He gave me the thumbs up. All right. All right. You want to do use thunk? Let's do use thunk. What thunk? What did I just hear, right? How many people know what a thunk is? So a thunk is like an asynchronous action, right? It's kind of interesting, right? It's one of the most common pieces of middleware that's used in Redux. Basically, what it gives you the opportunity to do is you can dispatch these asynchronous actions, right? So here I've got an asynchronous action right here. I'm actually doing a fetch, and then when I get back from the fetch, then I'm dispatching this thing that says, hey, I just loaded the post from the server, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that up into a function. We'll just call it load posts. This is like our action creator, right? We're going to take the created before and the limit, okay? So this is our action creator is called load posts. Load post, there we go, created before and the limit. All right. So what am I going to do here? So let's use our middleware. Okay. Put that down there. Okay, so it's just another wrapper. What are we going to get in here? What's our common interface in this case? The state and dispatch. Okay. All right. And you'll notice that whenever we're doing thunk stuff, the whole point of the thunk is we need the dispatch function. okay? So these thunks are cool because you get this function that receives the dispatch, and then you get to do whatever you want with the dispatch, like that, okay? Except right now, our thunk isn't doing anything, so everything's busted. Okay, so we basically need a new dispatch that knows about these new types of actions, right? These actions that are functions, that aren't just plain objects, that they're asynchronous functions. So let's go ahead, let's copy some code from up here. Boom, here's our new dispatch. And let's say new dispatch ref.current. Okay. So we've got a new dispatch, and this time what we're going to say is if the action is a function. I know I don't have any fancy ligatures that turn this into a single character. I'm sorry, I apologize. Some of you are like, thank goodness. All right, if it's a function, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to call it with my dispatch function. Otherwise, I'm just going to dispatch. Ladies and gentlemen, use thunk. Kind of interesting, right? So like, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So like, anything that you can do with a Redux middleware, these hooks are middleware. These hooks are just functions. Compose them however you want. That's the beautiful thing about them choosing functions. Choosing to make hooks functions is they compose just like functions compose, and you already know how to do that. Thanks very much. I'm Michael Jackson. See you later.